Markle backpedaling furiously, painful Sussexes face the biggest crisis since Megxit. Since their popularity is plummeting all around the world, it seems like Meghan has finally come to realize that her post-Megxit strategy of hard and continuous trashing of the royal family might not have been, looking back, their smartest move. Spotify can't stand the two of them, and it looks like red flags are being raised at Netflix. There are rumors that Harry has ordered Netflix to remove all sequences in his Heart of Invictus documentary with Meghan in them. If that's true, I guess that means the whole documentary needs to be reshot. Oh my goodness. What is this desperate Duchess going to do? Well, as we all know, her truth is going to get rolled out again, especially because things are not going very well for her. The latest news is that Meghan Markle is trying to distance herself from having had anything at all to do with Harry's book Spare. But could it be too late? Probably so. Everybody already knows that Harry barely even made it through school, so are we supposed to believe that he really is this writer all of a sudden? I don't think so. And his ghostwriter would have needed some input from the two of them to be able to come up with something. J.R. Moringer, after all, is a writer, he's not a magician. But Meghan, purveyor of her own truth, is now claiming that she didn't micromanage Harry during the writing of Spare, but instead she chose to step back and she let him just get on with it. If anybody believes that, then I guess we have nothing more to say. If anybody believes that Meghan was not very involved in writing Spare, then I've got a great oceanfront property in New Mexico to sell you. There is one question, though, that I would love to know the answer to. Are they editing Invictus because of Harry, or did Netflix order them to remove Meghan? It looks like since basically everybody all around the world has realized that Meghan is a complete manipulative fraud, she's trying to issue another version of her truth in an attempt to counter that fact. But it's not gonna work because way too many people are onto her. We know that she has been dominating this prince from the first day she met him, and by the way, that meeting was 100% engineered by her. I don't believe I could come up with a case of worse planning and execution than Megxit if I tried. I mean, they did it when the global pandemic was first beginning. It's going to go down in history as being the worst idea ever. And now the writers and actors strike in Hollywood? It looks like the karmic disasters just keep on coming their way. Even the Edward VIII and Wallace saga didn't come close to this royal disastrous duo. As far as I can tell, even though Edward and Wallace were accused of many things, nobody ever really accused them of being liars or trashing the royal family. Edward and Wallace certainly made their own bed, and they didn't care that they had to lie in it. The gruesome twosome have nobody to blame except for themselves, nobody. Although now, to be fair, Meghan is trying to shift the blame for their demise onto Harry. Spare? What are you talking about? No, that was all Harry's thing. I didn't have anything to do with it. Well, considering the big old mess they're finding themselves in right now, I'm not surprised she would say something like that. That is right up her alley. Meanwhile, WME is trying desperately to make her look better. They are trying to demarkle Meghan Markle. But I'm afraid they're way too late. Good luck with that, WME. Meghan Markle is obviously her own worst enemy. In fact, that is an understatement. She's everybody's worst enemy, actually. Who has ever had anything to do with her and then reported nice things about her? I don't think anybody. Just look at what she's done to Harry. And once the blame game begins in a marriage, can rock bottom be very far off? Probably not. I suspect both of them are discovering that it's essentially impossible to rebuild bridges. Both of them took a shot, and unfortunately for them, they missed the mark big time. They underestimated people's intelligence. They underestimated the ability of people to figure out that they're a couple of grifters and frauds. And then Harry's going to go to Africa so he can pretend to care about them. Pretty ironic since Meghan Markle behaved so horribly there. If they really were dancing in the streets when the two of them got married, oh, I'm excited to see what they're going to do next. We've all been waiting for Karma to show up, and it sounds like she has come a-knocking. But the one thing we are waiting on is a definitive source about the invisible children. We need some questions answered. Do they have children at all? Are there no children? Did they use surrogates? Do they have Harry's DNA if they're real? It's incredibly important that we get that information out. Now, my idea is still that the Queen knew Meghan was going to be the architect of her own downfall, and why she told the family, especially Charles and William, to hold back and keep their powder dry could be explained by that. The Queen had a 70-year reign. She encountered every personality type out there. She knew that Meghan and Harry were a disaster waiting to happen, and she knew that unfortunately there was no intervention possible to fix their problems. The Queen played the long game, and she gave them more than enough rope to hang themselves. Now Charles kept on with this strategy because he could see that it was clearly working. In other news, there's another little issue that I want to talk about. Why do so many people out there claim that Elton John hates the royal family right now? I don't believe there is any hatred involved in this. He was incredibly close friends with the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and of course he supported her when the marriage fell apart. I'm sure he was very affected when she passed away. Now, as many did at that time, the royal family were viewed with suspicion, but they did a thorough investigation into the death, and the results clearly showed that their driver caused the accident. Because he loved Diana so much, he felt very sorry for Harry when he was a young boy, and it seems like he decided to do whatever he could for Harry until Harry and Meghan upset Elton recently by talking bad about him during a flight in one of his private jets. Their upsetting conversation was recorded, and since they're not friends anymore, I think Elton heard it. It would be a lot better for Elton if he could just get on with his life instead of getting involved in other people's business for the sake of his health and his happy family life. I remember a long time ago when Gianni Versace put together a fashion coffee table book titled Rock and Royalty. That book was made to help raise some money for Elton John's AIDS Foundation. And Diana, the late Princess of Wales, was supposed to write the foreword for the book, but she pulled out. Elton believed that she decided she didn't want to do it because the palace did not want a member of the royal family being involved with the book. It did contain a few risque pictures. According to Elton's biography, they made up when she called him up after their mutual friend Gianni Versace was murdered. She apologized for their falling out, and she asked could they please be friends again. And that was only a few weeks before she passed away. Now, does he still hold the royal family responsible, or is it the palace he believes was responsible? I don't know. Perhaps one, perhaps both. But does he hate the royal family? Again, of course, I can't say for sure, but apparently he does have a very soft spot for both William and Harry. And if people are asking because they believe that he snubbed the coronation concert, let's remember it was reported that he was touring outside of the UK at the time, and so it's not like he could really attend. As far as we can tell, he and Diana were very close. Their friendship was a very important one, and it has to be incredibly painful for him to see what a user Harry has turned into, and the shame that he has brought to her memory. And King Charles just lets him get away with it. I'm sure he knows the pain it causes people who remain loyal to her memory, though. I do not believe for a second, though, that Elton John hates the royal family. Now, Harry is a grown man, but at the same time, he is a grown man with a self-confessed drug abuse problem, and that often leads to a person making some pretty foolish decisions. Surely, even as adults when we get into trouble, it is reasonable for a parent to offer some practical help. But King Charles just throwing a bunch of money at this problem that Harry is struggling with is not going to help him at all. Even grown children have to turn to their parents for help sometimes. And this doesn't really answer the question. I mean, how do we know Elton John hates the entire royal family? Hatred is actually a pretty ugly thing to accuse someone of, so unless we have definitive proof, let's not go there with Elton John. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.